Hello and welcome back to Song Surveys on Sofas with Superheroes, the sub-series. So last week we did an old school song, so this week we're going to do a new one, a new release. And I'm really excited about it because this was not a song I was expecting to be released by this band. They recently released an album in 2018, so the fact that they released a new song in 2019 is super exciting. I also am curious to know what their plans are for any future releases. I know that Imagine Dragons did this a while back. They released their CD, which did not do that well, and then they released a single, which ended up blowing up. So not that this band is going to do that. They're not at that caliber. But it is interesting that they released an album, and I wonder how well it did, and then now to release this new song right after the album, hopefully maybe trying to get people back in. I don't know. Interesting choice. I am excited to see if they release anything else, but let's get into it. So the song is called Fine Mess by Interpol, and I'm not gonna lie, it starts and it's actually pretty jarring. It's just like a blast of lyric and music all at once. There's no build-up, there's no introduction. It's just, here's this new song. It's loud and not necessarily even melodic. It's just kind of there. When I first listened to it, I wasn't a huge fan of the first line. But then hearing the second line, I actually was a huge fan. I actually really enjoyed the first verse just because, again, that first time I heard the first line, I was like, not that interesting. And then you hear the second line, you're like, ooh, wait a minute, now we're adding some depth. So the first line is, I'd like to tour the 80s. Not that interesting to me, but then but I got sideswiped and came right to 78. So I really love the idea of wait, who sideswiped you? What happened? And why specifically 78? It's only 2 years away from 80. So I really thought that made the first verse interesting. And then afterwards, when the first verse kind of ends and it goes into what I usually consider the pre-chorus, I actually really love that the music doesn't change itself. It's the way that the singer sings the lyrics that change. And I think that adds such a great aspect to the song because you're just, again, it's this music was just kind of shoved at you and it's still keeping you in that high intensity musical moment. But now all of a sudden there's a slight change in how the words are being delivered. So there's more pauses and there's more breaks, and these pauses end up having this huge impact. So the lyrics in part of the pre-chorus is, he says, deep breath, deep breath. So it gets repeated, first of all, which I like. And I love lyrics about breath. And then the next word after this repetition of deep breath is keep. But then there's this pause. So your mind is oh, well, deep breath, keep breathing. Oh, I got this. I'm totally good. Keep breathing. No, not even close. It's keep grabbing, which I also love, right? So you're grabbing, you're reaching for this thing, keep going, keep doing it. So I really love that they added these slight pauses, and it really definitely made such a difference because then all of a sudden, as they're going into this pre-chorus with these pauses, the last word they sing before the chorus, it gives them such an opportunity to have this drastic music change, which I really love. So the line right before the chorus I love is, so I make time to rewind those memories and play. And I don't know why it's such a big deal to me, but I really do love the fact that he says, I make time to rewind and go back, right? Which a lot of songs and, that's a big theme is going back. But then the fact that he says, and play. Yeah, you go back, but now you need to also push play. You need to, relive what you went back to relive. And I think sometimes that's a positive thing, right? You think of these great memories and you play them in your head and you're like, oh, wow, this is awesome. But sometimes it's not. And I think that that's kind of an interesting choice that they put the word and play in there because it makes you really think, oh, okay, so it's not just going back and saying oh, yeah, I remember that. It's no, now you have to play it and you have to go through it again. So I did like that. And again, it's not necessarily a big deal. I don't know why I'm so honed in on that. But for some reason, it really just made me appreciate the fact that they're talking about the past, but then they're also talking about playing the past, right? So you go back, but then you have to push play and relive it. And I think that also goes well with the first two lines, right? I wanted to tour the 80s, but I got sideswiped to 78. So now you have to push play and live through this 78 moment. I don't know if that's significant. I don't know if that was the intention, but I think it works and I really liked it. So when they say the word play, the music changes super drastically, and you go into the chorus, which is where they bring in the fine mess part. You and I are a fine mess. And it's a quick chorus. It's not really that long the first time you hear it. And then you get taken right back into the second verse, and it's that, you know, again, that blast of music, and it's like this big change. Second verse was pretty good. The one line I like randomly took away from that verse was your come and see face. And I just like love the idea that this person he's talking about has this, like, again, this really goes into that playing this memories, going back, right? This come and see face, like, oh yeah, like you come, you see, and like we'll see what's going on. So I just like love that this person, again, is not necessarily like remembering all these perfect things. And I mean, the song is fine mess, right? So he knows that this is already messy and this is already a situation. So I just really liked that line. I thought it was kind of cool. Your come and see face, like, oh yeah, come and see what's going to happen. So I liked that. I thought that was pretty cool. So then they repeat the deep breaths, and this time they follow the same rhyme scheme as the first verse or pre-chorus, but they don't actually say the same words, which I love when that happens. It really just like blows my mind, and I think it's fantastic. And I also just love the line that they chose to go with. So even though I loved the first part, I also like just with the whole like memories and playing, I really love the second part. These thoughts are those thoughts that cover me in gray. So I think it's fantastic because of just the way that they use the demonstrative, these versus those, these thoughts are those thoughts that. So I really liked that. And I loved the fact that there's alliteration. So all those THs, these thoughts, those, that. But I also just love the line. Like these thoughts, like the ones that I'm talking about right now are those thoughts. Remember we talked about, and they cover me in gray, right? So obviously gray is like a color of, you know, depression, sadness, something that is not bright and colorful and wonderful. So I just really liked it. I thought it was a really good line, and I love that it's different from the first time they sang that part of the song. And again, once they say gray, the song totally changes and goes back into the chorus, which again was subtly different this time. So I really love that. So the first time they sing the chorus, it ends with "you're on." And then the second time it says "you're always shattered," which I love, right? Especially because, so the word always is like super significant. And I also love the fact that it doesn't rhyme. So they didn't like force themselves to stay with that scheme just in that one part, but they stuck with that scheme in the other part. So I really love that they kind of like stuck with it, but then didn't feel necessary. And they really wanted to send the message of, you're on in the first chorus, but you're always shattered. So I really just liked, first of all, shattered. I love the idea of something that's so broken that it's shattered. Especially when you talk about a person. I think that that's a really cool concept, to have someone who's just completely like just so like sad and broken and shattered. But then also I love that always shattered. So it's not just that you're shattered now, because you were on before, right? And so you're not just shattered now, you're always shattered. So maybe that also goes into the fact that even when you're on, you're still shattered. So I just really love the word always. I think it was really great that they didn't use it before. And again, they just subtly changed that chorus. And I love when bands do that. I love when they don't stick to that constant like, listen, you heard this before, you're going to hear the same thing again. I love even just one line, one note held, one extra pause in between. It really adds to the feel of the song, and it definitely makes you want to keep listening, because now you need to figure out, okay, well, what's going to happen next? You already changed all these parts, so what's the next thing you're going to change? So I really love it. I think that was a good choice, and I, again, just think that the words and the contrast is really great. Then they kind of go into this point where they have music in between some of the lines, which is definitely the first time that happens in the song. Pretty much from the start of the song up until after the second chorus, they really don't have just instrumentals. It's all instrumentals with lyrics, save like a couple notes here or there. But this is the first time you actually get just like lines of music. So the music goes into the bridge, which the bridge is okay. I really liked the first half of the bridge. The first like 3 lines are really great. It talks about kind of his welts or wounds or scars, if you want, and how they changed, right? So at first they're bleeding and they're, you know, they desire this one certain thing, and now that's not what they desire anymore, and now they're different and they're there. So I really liked that first part. I wasn't a huge fan of the next 3 lines of the bridge. So that was kind of a mixed bag for me, but I do really like the drastic change of music. I think it worked really well. And yeah, and it was also, again, that first time that you really just get music, you just get instruments, and it's no lyrics for the first time in the song. So I thought that was an interesting choice too. I mean, it's pretty far into the song. They've sung the verses and the 2 choruses, and then they kind of go into this bridge with music, a couple lyrics, and then more of this music. So I did really like that. And then they end the song, they go back to singing the chorus. And what I love is, like, so the chorus starts with you and me. And when they start, so after this little instrumental piece, when they start getting back into the chorus, he just repeats the words, you and me, and then goes back in the chorus, you and me are a fine mess. So I really love that, just, again, just that subtle change. He didn't have to repeat the whole line. He just, those 2 words, you and me, and then you go back into the chorus. I really, really loved that. And I thought that was a really good touch, especially because, again, this song just has so many of those changes. So to not have changed the chorus the 3rd time you played it, I think that would have done the song a disservice. So the fact that, again, just such a simple, subtle change that you and me repeated 1 time just made it so excellent. I actually like had to listen to that part over and over again because I really did enjoy it. I really, really, really liked that part. And again, it's such a simple thing, and it's just such an easy change, but it really enhanced the end of the song for me, and I really appreciated that because, again, it's not just a repeat of the chorus. It's a little bit different, and it makes you want to know what's going to happen next. So at the end, when they repeat the chorus, they return to the being shattered and not the being on. So I thought that was interesting that they stuck with that. And yeah, then the song just kind of ends. It's an abrupt ending, just like the start, but it is interesting because the song ends and the last lyric that's sang actually has 2 or 3, a couple notes after that. So I thought that was interesting that they didn't just end it with a lyric, that they kind of had those couple extra notes at the end. Just interesting because I wonder why they did that, right? Again, the song starts and it's just so powerful and so bam, like in your face. And then the ending, you think, okay, well, this is probably going to end in the same way, especially because, again, the part where it's just instrumental is so, like, not a huge part of this song. So it's really all about the lyrics. So it's just interesting that they chose to end the song with just like this little tiny bit of like notes. And again, it's not a lot of notes. It's just a couple, but just an interesting choice, and curious to like know if that was something that was significant to them, because it maybe wouldn't be significant to all listeners, but it just made me curious to kind of hear and know why they chose, after starting with such a strong start, to end with just these couple little notes. Overall, I really love the huge Overall, I really love the song because I'm a huge Interpol fan. And I think it definitely touches on like their old school stuff, which is great. And definitely if you like start to listen to the song, you're like, God, this girl's crazy, this song is terrible, just stick with it. You could even maybe skip ahead on YouTube or whatever. I definitely like this song. It's good. It's took me a couple listens to really get into, but I'm excited for them, and I'm excited to see what happens with any future releases. And yeah, so I think it's a really good song. You should definitely check it out, and I will be back next week with an old school song. So yeah, thank you for watching, and please feel free to comment, to like, subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.